My husband's dog was sick, just like me, but only one of us could be saved. To my dismay, he had a plane returning from abroad turnaround, all so that the dog could get better treatment. My husband didn't seem to care that the same flight was carrying the kidney I needed to live. Holding the note that said I was in critical condition, my body cold, and my breath shallow, I asked Thatcher through tears to save me. But I was just given a punishment. Veronica's dog is sick. Do you have any idea how upset she is? And you? What were you trying to prove by pretending to be sick? Come on, Jasmine. Veronica already told me you just got a cold. How about I make you really suffer for a few days so you can quit messing with me? Before I knew it, his men had removed all the medical equipment that was keeping me alive, pulled me out of the hospital bed, and thrown me into the hills in an unfamiliar suburb. Veronica cut my face with a knife so deeply that I lost a lot of blood and died up there. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, she dismembered my body. Then she ran back into her husband's arms, crying. Thatcher, Jasmine's gone. I think she resented you for teaching her a lesson, so she ran away, she said, not telling the truth. Thatcher got really angry and took it out on my family. My parents' company suddenly went bankrupt, which led to both mom and dad taking their own lives. My younger sister, who had just graduated from college, suffered the same fate and was tortured to death. It wasn't until 5 years after I was killed that a sanitation worker found a bone that looked like a finger in a sewage pit. I was just floating there, watching my own bones get crawled on by maggots and filth, and the stench was just awful. Even though I knew it was my own dismembered body, I couldn't help but turn away and gag. It didn't look anything like me. I'd always been proud of my looks. Even when I was sick, I made sure to dress up so Thatcher could see me at my best. I'd even wear full makeup to sleep. Perhaps that's why Veronica ended things with me in such an unseemly manner, leaving my remains in such a gross location. The worker was so shocked by the severed finger that he lost his grip on his shovel and fell to the ground, shaking. Good grief. That looks like a human finger to me. Oh my goodness. Who knows what else is in here? The voice, which seemed a bit out of place, caught Thatcher's attention as he was visiting the construction site for inspection. He walked over to the pit, his expression changing as he saw my finger. If that really belongs to a person, it looks like the body was dumped like this. This looks like a murder case to me. What are you waiting for? Let's call 911. I was taken aback, looking at my husband. Time was on his side. 5 years had gone by, and he still looked as cold and regal as when we were still together. But the kiss mark on his neck showed he wasn't as cold as he seemed, and that he was facing a new reality without me. After spending 5 long years adrift in this world like a lost soul, my heart felt numb. But then, at that moment, I felt a familiar pain in my chest. It made me think of the time I was still alive. He kept on breaking up with me to be with his first love. He missed our anniversaries while lying to me. It was a hauntingly similar sensation. It was a real shock. The man I loved and my murderer, they've been living happily together since I was gone. Just then, my phone rang with a loud ringtone. Thatcher pulled out his phone. As soon as he saw who was calling, his expression changed from blank to sweetly smiling. I'd never seen him smile like that before. I used to tease him about always looking serious and cold. But he would just scold me, calling me unreasonable as if he had to control every expression on his face. I have to face the truth now. It wasn't that I was overly sensitive. My husband just didn't love me. He didn't even have a smile for me. When Thatcher answered the call, he was surprisingly soft-spoken and affectionate, displaying a side of himself I'd never seen before. Hey, we've got a little problem here. I might not be home for another hour or so. Your cold's finally getting better, but stay home for a bit, okay? Just don't set the AC too low, and maybe avoid cold drinks for a while. It was surprising and a bit bitter to hear him nagging like a mother. Was he the same guy who only told me to drink more warm water when I was literally in the ICU? After about 15 minutes of going over everything again, he finally ended the call. The overwhelming stench of my remains and the feces made him cover his nose and take a few steps back. Before long, the police arrived and quickly entered the site to recover my body from the pit. The bones have oxidized and blackened, and the muscle tissue has decomposed. It's been years since these bones were here. At least 5, the forensic investigator said. He went on, the body's been completely destroyed. We're going to need to run some DNA tests to ID this poor soul. Thatcher's face showed a hint of surprise. Whoever did this was pure evil, he muttered. Out of the blue, one of the cops said, Hey, there's a ring on this severed finger. At that moment, I was overwhelmed with emotion and a glimmer of hope. Thatcher, my husband, would he recognize me? That's the engagement ring he gave me. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a miscalculation in my husband. He didn't recognize the ring as my engagement ring. Of course. It was Valentine's Day when he tossed it to me after I annoyed him about it. It was just a cheap ring from a dollar store. It's likely he didn't even take a look at it when he bought it. Even if it wasn't particularly valuable, it was still the first gift he'd ever given me. I cleaned it every day, and I wore it carefully, never taking it off. Then Thatcher walked over to the cops. After getting their permission, he picked up the ring with tweezers to take a closer look. This isn't gold. It's made of iron, he said. My wife loves jewelry, and I've studied various metals. I know what I'm talking about. I looked at him for a second, my eyebrows knitting together in confusion. On my birthday, I wore a beautiful family heirloom diamond bracelet. But he called me a vase, pretty but useless. After that, I stopped wearing jewelry to please him. So why was he saying his wife loved jewelry? Then it suddenly occurred to me. Right, he was talking about his first love, Veronica Pendleton. In his eyes, I was probably just getting in the way of their love story. The victim likely had limited financial resources, he proposed. That made me laugh in disbelief. But then I felt a sharp, overwhelming pain and tears streamed down my face. He's got a great sense of humor. Thatcher Cunningham was the richest man in Oak Ridge City, with billions in assets. I mean, he only gave me a $2 engagement ring. I guess he didn't think I was worth much. Oh, well, it's not even worth $2. I had to really plead with him to give me that ring. At that moment, the police unearthed some new evidence. We've collected some kidney tissue from the victim, which suggests severe kidney disease. Thatcher's assistant looked surprised and asked, "Isn't Jasmine dealing with some kidney issues? And she's been missing for 5 years, right?" Hearing my name sent a jolt through me, and I couldn't help but turn to Thatcher. My heart was racing with tension and a glimmer of anticipation. We were married for 5 years. Did you really not have anyone who cared about me? I was so upset I started crying. But he just looked at me with disgust. Don't even bring up that woman. Her parents and sister died because of her, and she had the nerve to travel the world without apologizing to Veronica. I can't believe I even have to bring up that woman's name. It makes me sick. What? My mom, my dad, and my sister. Are they all deceased? Actually, they were perfectly healthy. Could it be that? Thatcher pushed them to their deaths just to get to me. I was taken aback by the suddenness of the situation and found myself speaking in a rather sharp tone. I went over to Thatcher and grabbed his shoulders, asking him what I needed to know. But as soon as I got close to him, I realized my hands were just going through his body, like I was grabbing at thin air. His company was on the brink once, and it was my parents who sold off their own company's assets to help them out. My younger sister had just graduated from a top university, ready to take on the world. So, was it just a case of first love? Did he not care about my life or my family's lives? I suddenly felt like my blood was freezing. How could I have been so naive to fall for such a scoundrel? Because of me, my family had to pay the price. At that moment, Thatcher gave instructions to his assistant. "I'm not involved with the victim. I have to go. You can stay here with them." His voice was emotionless. He treated his stuff and me the same way. But whenever Veronica came up, he'd get this soft look in his eyes, totally at odds with his blank face, like spring breaking through winter's chill. Veronica still felt the cold, he explained, excusing himself. "I need to head back early today to help her out.